Welcome back, everybody. We're about to start chapter 10, and the brothers are going to have a party. But you know, you can't go to a party till you get ready for the party, right, Kat?
Oh, of course. Must.
It's all about what you're going to wear and how you're going to look and all that kind of stuff, right?
Of course, and must not dress like anybody else, but must dress like everybody else.
Right. There's some fun things to be exposed in this chapter, not the least of which are some of the characters and a few surprises along the way. So take a listen to chapter 10. Chapter 10. The Mage Guild was in recess for 3 weeks, so Gethric scheduled the party for Friday night and took care of all the arrangements. The royal guards would not be in uniform, and they were instructed not to drink more than 1 pint of ale each. Spirits were strictly forbidden. They were offered double pay for doing the job and keeping his secret. Gethric also told them that they would be discharged from their positions if they muttered a peep about the party to anyone. He met privately with Brant, a senior guard and someone he considered a close friend. Gethric offered Brant a bonus of 2,000 croats, but there were conditions. Brant would refrain from drinking any ales or spirits. He would keep his eye on the other guards to make sure they upheld their end of the deal. Finally, Brant was instructed to bathe and brush his coat. "I mean this as a friend," Gethric told Brant. "Just because you are a bear doesn't mean you have to smell bad. Your brother attends mage council meetings with no offensive odor. Can you please, on this occasion, try to do the same?" Brant promised he would. Gethric sent Fergus, his dresser, out to buy appropriate clothes for the occasion. He, too, would get a bonus for keeping the secret. The dresser returned with several boxes and bags filled with selections that he felt were neither too fancy nor too casual. "I hope you like these," said Fergus. "I went shopping just as you asked me to. These are—" He put his hand to his forehead and paused. Fergus was not only Gethric's personal dresser, he was also the royal tailor. Yesterday, when Gethric asked him to go shopping for clothes, he became so wispy-headed that he had to pour himself a glass of water and sit down. Fergus made clothes. He didn't shop for clothes. Gethric asked Fergus to please not be offended and explained that he and Cedric had to look ordinary. For their safety, they had to look like every other person out on the town. "I can make you plain outfits, if that's what you want," Fergus had argued. 2 outfits by Friday afternoon? Fergus shook his head in disbelief. His ginger coiffure jounced about as if it were a fox trying to escape from a trap. His mind raced around, searching for a solution other than shopping. He repeatedly plucked at his bow tie, and then he began tapping on his oversized, red-framed eyeglasses. He stood up and walked to the window, fanning himself with his hand and trying to usher in some fresh air. He couldn't think of a way to make it happen. Just acquiring the right fabrics would take 2 days, leaving no time to actually make the garments. So he relinquished his argument, took it as a challenge, and went shopping. Fergus took a breath and started once again to describe his purchases. "These are common made by Jerome and Sons from the Skidoo Emporium," he said, nearly choking on the word skidoo. Fergus untied the boxes with dramatic flair and whisked out each item, adding full commentary about each one. 2 fashionable 3/4 length dandy jackets with lightly flared tails. One is made from an Oxford blue twill and features a leather waist strap with decorative bronze clasps. The other is made with cattail brown tweed and has leather epaulets accented with a cascade of brass chains. Gethric nodded his approval. 2 pair of charcoal corduroy Pendleton breeches with double-button drop fronts, right and left flanking pockets, and fashionable leather lacings running the entire length of each side that are woven through bronze eyelets. "They're perfect," said Gethric. Fergus continued showing Gethric the other items: linen shirts, argyle socks, and 2 pair of two-toned Broxfords with buckles. One pair was brown and tan, and the other pair was black and cream. Fergus had purchased 2 hats. One was a multi-blue leather-paneled top hat, and the other was a brown bowler. It had a leather band that was secured by a metal clasp. Fergus pointed out that the styles for both outfits were similar, but that one was primarily a dusty blue ensemble with tea rose complements, and the other one was primarily wheat toast brown with amber accents. He also pointed out that the clothes were fairly common, and that they could possibly come upon other Ansarians wearing the same garments. "You'll blend right in with the crowd," said Fergus, doing his best not to show his disdain over the purchases. "This is exactly what I needed," said Gethric. "Thank you." Getting to the shoe and fiddle posed another problem, but also provided another opportunity for Gethric to do something uncharacteristic and surprise Cedric. He would have their regular driver take them to Mage Hall, where they would pick up their BMC tri-wheel motorbees and drive them to the party. Because he was so excited about the idea of being incognito and going about as if he were one of the regular city folk, he spent an entire morning doing nothing but washing and polishing both of their motorbees. Being princes, they were restricted from moving about freely through the streets of Anza without an entourage. It simply wasn't safe. They did, however, have total freedom to move around anywhere within the rose wall that surrounded Barleywick Quarter. The copper-domed Senate chambers, the resplendent courthouse, the government offices, and the 3 prestigious Rose Vine colleges were all located inside the rose wall. The wall got its name from the rose-colored granite that was quarried for its construction. The same quarry had been used to build the regal and stately buildings for the Satins Guild, the Governing Guild, and the Mage Guild. The landscape architects wisely planted climbing rose vines that skirted the bottom of each college. The rose vines had also been planted along the entire perimeter of the rose wall, both inside and outside, for all to enjoy. When rose season was at its peak, Barleywick Quarter was not only a magnificent sight to behold, but the sweet scent of roses permeated the air. Also located in the area were the living quarters for all the residential students, apartments, athletic fields, and King's Park. Many professors, clerics, high-ranking mages, and government officials lived in the large houses that lined each side of Regal Avenue. The royal family owned one of the houses on Regal Avenue, which Cedric and Gethric used often. Rosewall separated the quarter from the rest of the city, and could only be accessed via the 4 entry gates that were guarded 24/8. Barleywick Quarter was large enough that driving was sometimes more practical than walking, but not so large that transportation was required. An able-bodied individual could walk anywhere within the quarter if they wanted to. From the time they were old enough to drive, Gethric and Cedric had enjoyed puttering about on their BMC motorbees. They had purchased them more out of want than need. Jaunting about on their BMCs inside the perimeter of Rosewall was a good distraction when they needed a break from the tedium of their studies. They had recently traded their old ones for the newest model. Each year, Biggleston Motor Company came out with only one new tri-wheel motorbee model. They all featured 2 large rear wheels, 1 small front wheel, and an overhead canopy. They came with a choice of handlebars or a steering wheel. The engine was contained in a bulbous compartment that hung below the main frame and looked like the abdomen of a bloated spider. From year to year, BMC made slight changes to the contours of the vehicle. Other than the color choices and fuel efficiency improvements, the vehicles didn't change much. The dramatic changes came from the new add-ons that kept rolling out each year. Nobody ever bought a BMC and left it plain. The practicality of having transportation was one thing, but Alarians were prone to individuality, and the options for customizing a basic motorbee were endless. Alarians wanted to look bang. They especially wanted to look bang when tooling around the streets in their motorbees. Making your motorbee look bang was easy. Some businesses in Anza sold nothing but motorbee accessories. There were so many options that no 2 motorbees looked alike. Gethric had customized his by adding a dorsal fin to the canopy, an ooga horn on the handle, and a twirligig on the front fender. His choice of add-ons were stylish, but reserved in comparison to the kind of accessories most folks added. Cedric had an ooga horn and a twirligig, but he also added a sphere scope. The scope was incorporated inside a pair of goggles that dangled down from the canopy. They fitted over his eyes like regular goggles, but allowed him to see in any direction without having to turn his head. He installed pop-up rotator blades above the canopy that he could deploy at the press of a button. They used a lot of extra fuel, but enabled him to fly short distances if he wanted to. It was an extravagance to have rotator blades, especially since Cedric couldn't use them very often. Finally, he had attached a back-facing bumper seat that would accommodate an additional passenger when necessary. Gethric suggested that they do themselves a favor and get a haircut and a beard trim. Both of them had allowed their beards to lengthen naturally, which was common among sorcerers, but not required. A variety of beard styles were becoming fashionable. The alley cat, with an extremely wide handlebar mustache, was a style that was common and very dapper. Some newer styles were the latest rage, like the double trouble, the savant, the ducktail, the hatchet, the boudreau, and many others. They sent for the owner of the groomed goat because he seemed to have the best reputation for keeping up with the newest trends and styles. The barber was escorted to the castle carrying his satchel of supplies, which, of course, had to be examined by the guards. There was no concern for his combs, brushes, shampoos, or oils, but his scissors and single-blade razors were lethal weapons. A sentinel was stationed in the room to keep an eye on the barber. Brock, the footman, entered the room, raised up on his hind legs, clicked his hooves twice, and said, "Presenting Carlson Weatherby, a certified barber in the city of Anza, and the proprietor of the groomed goat." He then stepped back and motioned for the barber to enter the room. As Carlson walked forward, Brock looked himself over. He thought himself to be a fairly well-groomed goat, with a fairly well-groomed beard. He raised an eyebrow, shrugged, harumphed, and left the room. Carlson showed no signs of nervousness. He was perfectly comfortable in the presence of the royal princes. The brothers went to him and extended their hands. They instantly hit it off when Carlson shook their hands and said, "Your Highnesses, at your service. As a matter of curiosity, may I ask if you can list the 3 days in the week that start with the letter T?" The brothers were actually caught off guard by the question. "Excuse me?" asked Gethric, confused but chuckling. "Can you name the 3 days in the week that start with the letter T?" Said Gethric with a blank face. It's a riddle," said Cedric. "Let me see. There's Sunday, Moon Day, Trees Day, Wednesday, Earth Day, King Day, Free Day, and Saturn's Day. There's only one that starts with a T, and the other 7 don't." Cedric looked at Gethric. "Do you have it figured out?" Gethric, who loved a good riddle, shuffled through the days of the week in his head again, but couldn't come up with the answer. "Here's a hint," said Carlson. "Think about today." "Today is Earth Day," replied Cedric, "the 5th day of the week." "Indeed it is," confirmed Carlson. "But Earth Day starts with an E." "Indeed it does," replied Carlson. Cedric scratched his head. "Aha!" said Gethric, laughing loudly. "Trees Day, today, and tomorrow." "You got it," said Carlson. "Bravo," added Cedric. "I must remember that one." Gethric gestured to the chairs, and they all sat down. "I understand that you are looking to update those beards. Take a look at this portfolio," said Carlson. Carlson pulled 2 data discs from his coat pocket and passed them to his clients. Gethric inserted the disc into the slot on his goggles and pulled them over his eyes. Cedric inserted the disc into the side of his monocle and popped it into place. They both fingered the small dials on their devices and flipped through the pictures, exploring the various options of beard styles. Neither of them had predicted that there would be so many from which to choose. While they were scrolling through the images, Carlson suggested that each man select a different haircut and a different beard style so that they would be easier to differentiate and have more individualistic appearances. They agreed with his suggestion and discussed the various options. Cedric ended up choosing the flamboyant Prince Valiant, and Gethric, as Cedric had predicted, chose the stylish but more reserved Boudreaux.
Oh, this is fun. I really enjoyed this chapter, getting to know the people of Allaire, the boys, just their interaction as brothers and in the community, and how they think they're going to pull, they're going to try to pull off this party. I think it's really brilliant fun.
So Brant, of course, is the main security guard that takes care of them. They've got him all in on the thing. And then they don't want to go out looking royal and regal, so they have to go to Fergus, of course. And Fergus is just beside himself on all these common clothes, which actually would look very steampunk with all this lacings and rivets and metal buckles and all of those different things in their hats. So they're pretty outlandish to begin with. And Fergus is just like, oh my gosh, what I'm having to buy for the princes. This is horrible. And
they don't know anything.
They don't know anything. And of course they want to get all done up. So they're getting the barber from the groomed goat to come. And I love that he just walks in with no fear whatsoever and introduces the riddle, which exposes a very little important piece of the puzzle, which is in Allaire, they don't have 7 days a week. They have
8 days a week.
Absolutely. So just some fun stuff. You can see now it's a fantasy that's rolling forward in a little different way. I hope you're enjoying listening to it. Chapter 10 was fun for me. And let's get ready now for Chapter 11, because that's coming up next.